Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is plug. Let's take a moment to look at some of the definitions or the ways that we use this verb. The first two ways you might hear plug used is to mean to block or fill in a hole, or you might hear it to mean to insert something into an opening. So with these first two definitions, we're many times thinking of some type of physical object that's being placed. Perhaps there's a hole in the road, and you might see different items, gravel, things used to fill it, right? So we could use that verb to describe that action of filling it. You might even think about it as it relates to your pipes or drains. So if we put something in the opening where a drain is, we could, again, use this verb to say that we're blocking something in order from it being able to pass through. A third way you might hear the verb plug used is mean to remedy a deficiency. So with this third definition, many times people use it in a way like to plug some gap. And now this is not always a physical hole that we can see, but it might be something that's missing as part of a program. Maybe there's a need that isn't being met. That is what we're talking about here. So kind of a not so much a literal filling of a hole, but again, more metaphorically there. A fourth way you might hear the verb plug used is to mean to mention something publicly in order to promote it. Many people do this in YouTube videos. They tell you about certain products and why they think you should buy it, right? We can describe that action of promoting something as plugging it. A fifth way you might encounter this verb, plug used, is to mean to shoot someone or something, right? That's pretty informal. I feel like maybe you would hear that in a movie of some nature or a TV show. Thank goodness this is generally not a part of our everyday conversation. But you should know that plug is a regular verb. But our verb is going to have a spelling change as we make its different forms. So our base verb, plug, you can hear a short U sound, and I hope you can see from the screen here that it ends with a consonant, a vowel, and then another consonant. So anytime we're adding a suffix that begins with a vowel letter, we're going to have to double that final consonant. So to make the progressive form of this verb, you're going to see a second G before I add ing, and that makes plugging. The past tense and participle forms of this verb are also going to require a second G before we add ed. Our base verb, plug, g, ends in a voiced G sound, a G sound. This means that our ed ending is just going to make a D sound, and we're not going to add an extra syllable as we say it. So the past tense and participle forms should sound like this. Plugged, plugged. Okay. There are actually a number of other ways to use our verb plug, so we're going to focus on looking at some different phrasal verbs using plug today. The first phrasal verb you might encounter is to plug along. Many times when people use that, they're describing someone or something making continual progress at a rather steady pace, not too fast, not too quickly, and they might still make this slow, steady progress even if they're faced with some difficulties. An example of this might be, he plugged along with that project all last week. There's an example of a simple past tense sentence, right? We've got our time signal last week helping us know we're talking about a completed action. A second phrasal verb that is a bit similar in meaning is to plug away or plug away at. And again, we use this many times to talk about someone who's making progress. They're doing something with a lot of determination. They're trying so hard, even though they might be faced with some difficulties or challenges. An example of this might be, they've been plugging away at that puzzle all morning. So maybe it's one of those really difficult puzzles with 5,000 pieces and all of the pieces look like a shade of blue, right? That would be really difficult. But if we have a group of people, they continue trying, they continue working it, right? Our phrasal verb fits here perfectly. They've been plugging away at the puzzle is an example of the present perfect progressive or present perfect continuous. So we're describing an action that started in the past and is continuing into the present. Another phrasal verb that you've likely heard is to plug in. This can have a couple different meanings. The most common way I believe it gets used is to talk about connecting some machine to a source of electricity. An example of this might be, plug in the fan and turn it on. Okay. So this is an example of an imperative, a command. We're telling someone what to do, right? We want them to connect that machine to a source of electricity or the outlet. A second way plug in gets used is connected to our online world here of connecting to some type of online network or system. An example of this might be, the cafe had free Wi-Fi, so I plugged in and did some work. Here's another simple past tense sentence that I plugged in. Okay. We've got a couple more phrasal verbs to discuss. The next one is to plug into. Again, our first meaning for that could be to connect some machine to electricity. An example of this might be, did you plug the printer into the outlet? Okay, so here is another simple past tense example. This, of course, is a yes or no question. A second way plug into gets used is to mean to become involved with something. Okay? An example of this might be, they're plugged into indie music. Indie music might be a new phrase. It's referring to independently produced music. So these generally are not very famous bands that are able to be promoted or plugged by large companies. They're large production organizations, right? But here in this sentence, they're plugged into indie music is saying maybe they're involved with it. Maybe they go to a lot of concerts. Maybe they're playing themselves in a band of some nature. The last phrasal verb we'll discuss today is to plug up. Right? What this means is to become plugged. This is going to go back to those earlier definitions where we're talking about either blocking something or filling something. An example of that might be, does this drain plug up often? Right? This is an example of a yes or no question in the simple present. I'm asking about some drains sort of habit, right? Is this kind of a frequent problem that we have? Now, let's spend a moment looking at some words here related to our verb plug. And the first word we're going to talk about, of course, today is just the noun form of this word. Our noun can have a number of different meanings. We're going to talk about, I think, 4 of them today. So the first way the noun plug gets used is to refer to a circular piece of metal and rubber or plastic that's used to stop a drain. So an example of this in a sentence might be, where is the bathtub's plug? So maybe you can, you've heard that called a stopper. I think I've heard that as well. Same idea. We're talking about something that's going to block the water from moving through the drain. A second way plug gets used is to refer to a device for making an electrical connection. Right? I've got a picture of that here to kind of help us Oh, I jumped to the third one, didn't I? I apologize. So we'll go ahead and continue with that. Something seemed off. So a device here for making an electrical connection. So I've got this picture here, and where I'm highlighting right now, that we would refer to the plug. And over here, we would call this the outlet. So again, I think I used that word earlier with my phrasal verb of plugging into an outlet. Okay. The second way the noun plug gets used is to refer to some kind of obstruction, something that's blocking a hole or a pipe, something of that nature. An example of it might be, is there a plug in the pipe, right? We're asking kind of like, is something stuck? Is something blocking? A fourth way we use the noun plug is to refer to that idea of publicity or promotion. So trying to get people to be aware of maybe a new product, an event, some business, or establishment. An example of this might be, he gave a plug to his latest movie, right? So here, this could be an actor, it could be a director, a producer, who knows, right? But they're trying to talk publicly and get people interested or excited to go see a particular movie. I've actually got one phrase for us to look at today and discuss, and that phrase is to pull the plug. So sometimes you might think of kind of the opposite of plug in, right? We might literally think of like taking something out. But many times when people are using this, they're talking about preventing something from happening. They want something to stop, or they're going to prevent it from continuing, moving forward. An example of this might be, we need to pull the plug on this product. It's never going to be profitable. So perhaps this is what a development or marketing team within an organization says. They're looking at this and just, you know what, we need to stop making this, stop trying to sell it. It just isn't working. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.